Power on.
Hey, everybody, come on in. We're going to have a special interview and a talk with Clinton Gordon. And we're going to hang out and talk about whether or not we are free in this country. And I think that's going to be a pretty interesting discussion. So come on in, like and share, and get this out. We'll start in just a minute. Just want to make sure we're live and everything's going okay. Just hold on, let me get rid of this. Hey, everybody. Let me fix that. Playing around. I'm still learning this program. This is Be Live I'm using. This is a program that allows me to be able to have guests on and to have people on the show and talk to them. And I'm waiting on our guest right now. We have a guest coming tonight, Clinton Gordon. He's going to be on, and we are going to discuss whether or not we are free in this country, whether or not freedom is something that we have anymore. So while I wait for Clinton, we're going to talk about what you guys think about that. What do you think? Are Americans free? What does freedom mean? What does it mean to you? You know, we're going to explore all of that. We're going to look into it. And I want to know how you feel about it. I want to know whether or not you think we're free. And if you don't, why? And what do you think freedom is? You know, what would make us free? How do you pronounce your name? Shasardi? American freedom is an oasis. I don't know. I'm not so sure. You know, it doesn't really feel like we're free a lot of the times. You can't even collect rainwater. You know, we live in a system of oppression, system of greed. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why I wouldn't fully agree that it's an oasis. I believe we're led to believe that it is. We're told it is. You know, we're pitched that story for sure. But I don't really believe that it is true, you know, that it is an oasis. I know that's what the media would have you believe and what they say. You know, that's the image that they push, but I don't know. I don't think so. You know, what do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments. There's a few people here. We're waiting on our guest, and when our guest arrives, we're going to get into this conversation a little deeper. Clinton is an activist, and he's for freedom and for truth. And he tries to do what he can to spread that and to help that grow, because it's being killed off in real time, you know. It's being eliminated before our very eyes. And we need to do everything we can to defend it and protect it. And if you don't agree that American freedom is an oasis, maybe if you don't feel that way and you want to make some change and you want to spread some truth, share this out, get it out, because we're going to have an in-depth conversation on whether or not we are. And I always include the comments. I always include what the people are talking about. And Jeffrey says, sorry, I'm late. I guess corruption turned off my notification. Yeah, Jeffrey has notifications set, but that's what they do. That's what I'm talking about. We have a media and a Facebook and Google and all of that and YouTube and all that is mainstream media. It's all part of it. And they suppress the truth. They suppress things that they don't want getting out. And they're open about it. Facebook's open about it. They consider themselves to be a publisher. And they say that they can do that. They can do whatever they want. They have the right to put out and publish what they choose. And a lot of people agree with them. A lot of people feel like Facebook is a publisher and a private company and can pick and choose what gets out and what doesn't, and that's okay. But I don't feel that way. I feel like they have a monopoly over their individual platforms. And when you have that kind of a monopoly, I think you have to consider yourself like, basically a utility at that point. I think you have to consider yourself to be a utility. And you can't hide behind the private company, private publisher platform, because that's not really what you are, is it? If you're being 100% honest, Google controls the information. Google is the most widely used by far search engine. And they control information with their algorithm, and they pick and choose what rises to the top and what doesn't. And if you want to investigate something, it's really hard for you to find the truth. And it's being killed off in real time, but it's being corporatized. The censorship's being corporatized. So people don't see it as a affront or an attack to their freedoms. But I do. I do. No matter how it happens, it's happening. So we need to do all we can to raise awareness and to fight back against that, because one day we'll find ourselves in a reality where there is no truth and it doesn't exist anymore. But that's what I try to speak out against, and what most of my shows center around is the truth. No matter what I'm talking about, even my fun show on Sundays centers around the truth. That's the most important thing, and I hope that our guest is okay. He messaged me a little bit ago and said that he was running late. Hey, Babels, good to see you. He messaged me a minute ago and said he was running late, but I think he's coming in now. So that's good. I'm glad to see that. I was worried for a second that I promoted, and then Jay's here. Hey, Jay. Good to see you guys. I'm glad to see we got some people here. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure, because I see the guest now. I can see him on my screen. I'm going to bring him in so we can talk. But this was actually Clinton's idea, this topic, this subject, and it's something that he's very passionate about. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our guest, Clinton Gordon, into the stream. This should bring Clinton up into the stream. I'm still learning this software, but he should pop up into the stream with us. Let me look on my phone and make sure that happens. It looks like it's counting down. There he is. All right. Hey, Clinton, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I hear you good. Everybody, can you hear Clinton? Let me know in the comments if the audio's good, and if something's wrong, we'll fix it. But what we're talking about is whether or not America, the United States of America, is truly a free country, if we're really free, and even what freedom means and how it would be defined. And we're going to break it all down and get into it. But so where do you think we should start, Clinton? I was asking the audience if they thought we were free, and Shishardi said we're an American freedom is an oasis.
Is an oasis in what way?
I know, right? I don't really know, but that's what Shishardi said, is that American freedom is an oasis. He feels like that our freedom, I guess, is the best version of freedom on the planet. How do you feel?
Well, for me, I don't know. Every day I wake up and go to work. It's I don't go to work because I want to go to work. I go to work because if I don't go to work, I die. I have no food. They put money in front of water. You can't even get free water. You can't get everything that you do, you have to put $1 in front of. So if you want to eat, you have to go get money. If you want to drink water, you have to go get money. If you want a place to live, you have to go get money. Even after you've already paid for your place to live, if you want to maintain it, you have to pay a property tax, which means you got to go and get money just to live in the place that you already own and paid for, tax and all that stuff already once when you bought the place. For the rest of your life, that place is going to be considered your property, but you're going to pay taxes to the government just so they don't take it away from you. So
Right.
for me, that doesn't seem like very free to me.
So basically, what you're saying is, and something I've heard said before, is that we're in chains, but we're in chains of debt. Like slavery wasn't abolished; it was reimagined to include us all.
Completely. And there is I guess when you talk about slavery, there's different levels of slavery. There's obviously different levels of what's the word I'm looking for? Privilege. You know, there is definitely white privilege when it comes to like some of the benefits in America, as far as how police treat you, or how likely you are to end up in jail. Just how a lot of stuff is stacked against the blacks, but actually it's all inclusive now. So everything that everything that uh, hold on, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But
Well, I think I know where you were going.
everybody's basically on the chain of $1. Like everybody is basically locked in a cage on a chain of $1. Everything that you have to do, you have to go get $1, and then you gotta use that dollar to get what you want. So there
Right.
is no change, but the change is money. So like in my opinion, like what I've noticed is that money is in essence, it's like a way to harness human energy and store it. You know what I mean? So they got all this human energy that they suck our lives away with this money. We spend 5 days a week working. We get one day off that we don't have to work or go to work the next day, and then we got another 6 days that we got to go to work the next day, or we're working that day. So for me, that doesn't seem like freedom to me at all in any way, shape, or form.
No, I agree. And I mean, I guess everywhere they have to work. And so that's what people would say is, that's still freedom. We're free to do other things. But like I talked about the other day, you have a journalist right now sitting in a prison cell for spreading the truth. When we live in a country where what's supposed to be protected, the truth is, I thought, it's the way I understand the First Amendment,
Yeah.
but and journalism, that's the way I understand journalism. But he's being persecuted for that. And then I mentioned the American Literary Association burns. Well, they don't burn, but they eliminate 400 something books last year. It was close to 400. They're trying to do 480 something this year. So
But
your freedom of choice is being taken away.
what is their purpose for deleting the books?
They say different things. There's various reasons. They delete some of the books because they deal with gay issues and trans and stuff like that, and the other reasons were violence that they listed,
Yeah.
and they thought things that they might think were discriminatory. But To
Kind of
Kill a
kind of like
Mockingbird
kind
was
of
a
like
banned book.
Facebook community standards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. To Kill a
whatever they
Mockingbird.
wanted to make it, they can make it.
Right. So who sets the standards, who checks, and who decides what gets out and what doesn't?
Yeah.
So in that way, information is at least not free.
Well,
and it's supposed to be.
here's one of the things that Obama did before he left office. The oversight committee for the internet used to be in America, so they would oversee the internet with the standard of our Constitution and free speech and so much and so forth. But when Obama was on his way out the door, he sent our authority over that committee. I think it was to China or so. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not China, but I don't know who it was. But it definitely it's not under our control anymore. So it's not protected by the Constitution anymore. And another thing that Obama did before he left is that he made it legal for the U.S. government to participate in propaganda. So now, so now
That's
they,
true.
so now the doors are wide open for not only the suppression of truth, but the promotion of lies and the promotion of deceit under the disguise of uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Under the disguise of national security. So and that's what they're aiming at Julian Assange with, is that he violated national security by the emails that he didn't leak, but he published. So everything that they do, they get to just throw this big cloak of national security on, and they can label you as a terrorist because you threaten national security. But then at the same time, they're not throwing Hillary Clinton in jail or even bringing her before a jury, and she's the one that actually was the biggest threat to the national security in the first place.
She definitely deserves to be prosecuted, and it's funny that she's not. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but if you really look into her, you would find that there are a lot of things that Hillary has slipped the noose on. If you really looked, I know she gets slandered a lot, but in reality, the woman has gotten away with a lot of crimes, and a lot of money has passed through her hands, a great deal of money. And
Yeah,
if you look into the Haiti stuff, she's, you know, crimes against humanity, even. There's a lot there.
yeah. Well,
But
that conspiracy truth rabbit hole goes pretty deep when it comes to Hillary and Bill, especially with their
well, it
involvement,
does.
their close affiliation with Epstein. You know,
Epstein, yeah, and the fact
Epstein.
that that story just went away is what I was getting at, is that the truth isn't even free in our society. We're supposed to have protections, you know, of journalists and freedom of speech and truth getting out, and we don't anymore. They don't exist. We don't have a real media, and the truth is being suppressed by corporations, and whoever's doing it doesn't matter that it's not the government. And this is all being allowed. And things like Hillary Clinton's corruption, her getting away with that, or people not looking at the WikiLeaks, the information was never disputed, but no one would look at it. CNN even told people that it was illegal. So the truth is being hidden from people. So in that way, we're not free. I consider that not being free.
No,
So in that way, I wouldn't think it's an oasis. I think we're led to believe we have such great freedom of speech, but if you really looked into it, it's the truth is not really encouraged. The establishment narrative is well published, but the truth you have to find.
right. Well, and you know
But
what
you
else
were
is that the truth is that we don't even really know the truth because it's you know we live in a system with what's called a democracy, and I've always thought of democracy as like communism or a hierarchy with just a mask on. It's just an illusion that it's the same exact thing as a king or a queen or even as Nazi Germany when it comes to what they say goes, and there is no questioning the government. There is no um, transparency. Everything that they want to hide, all they have to do is say, "Hey, that's national security." So, but when you say national security, who is the one that goes and makes sure that they're not using national security to do, crimes against humanity?
Yeah, and a lot of money disappears in the interest of national security as well. So that's and as Adam says, this is a really good comment. I'm going to put this up. Can you see that when I put the comments up on your end, Clinton?
Yes,
Can you read Adam's comment?
United States incorporation has become a rogue terrorist organization that must be abolished, and that's another good point that America became a corporation. I don't remember in what year, but at that point, that is when we began to really start to lose our freedoms and our protection under the Constitution. Because
Did you
now,
know a second constitution exists that was created during that time that you're talking about?
no, I didn't.
Yeah, there's a second constitution that exists.
I've heard
I
of
want to
it.
cover it. But yeah, it goes along with what you're talking about the United States being a corporation,
Yeah,
which they are. And you were mentioning the democracy too. That did exist and could again, I think, if we overwhelmed the rigged system with our numbers. But I think that's been done away with too. We're now in oligarchy more. The
yeah.
moneyed interests control our country.
Well, believe it or not, all the money that we think about it, we pay money for everything. We pay tax on everything. There's no difference between now and back in the day when the King of England used to tax all the people. All the peasants would have to pay taxes to the king. Everybody has to pay
Mhm.
taxes to the king today. It's just the IRS instead of the king.
Everybody but the rich.
Yeah, everybody but the rich, exactly. But all the peasants, like what I said, all the peasants have to pay taxes, and the rich people are actually extensions of royal families, I believe. That's why that they've made that all these loopholes to keep their families free and to flourish and to maintain their freedom while they eliminate ours. When in the
It's
course
sad
of
what's happened. Go ahead.
I was reading Adam Dingle's comment. He said, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another Declaration of Independence." That's true. And there's actually a movement going on right now. It's called the Convention of States, which is trying to get enough states together to, ratify this amendment or something like that, where
Yeah.
they would actually fall away from the federal union and give the power back to the states and do away with the federal power, which is all
Would
corrupt
you think
and
that would
lawful.
would you think that would be a better way to go?
I think that's the only shot we got at this point because with the things that are going on in the Pentagon and the things that are going on in the White House and all the corruption that's happening and it's in our face every day and we all just go to work and we get our check and we pay our taxes and we're happy surviving, working 5 days a week, you know, and we just allow it to happen because guess what? We don't have enough money in the bank to take a vacation and say, hey, we're all going to do a million man march on Washington, D.C. How can you do that? How can we? I
Right.
don't have, like most of the poor people in America, even, they're poor people, not even poor people, but just people who have, a house, a car, they have all these payments and, they get you caught up in the system to where you're always having to go make money and you don't have time to really make a difference in the world. You're just checking in, getting your money, checking out, paying your taxes, buying this, paying your taxes, buying that, paying your taxes. And we don't have enough time or resources as a community or as a, people as one to actually have a million man march against something like that, you know?
Why do you think that we do settle for the scraps that we're given?
I think that it's programmed into us from a very young age. I don't think we're taught to that this is not slavery. We're taught that this is freedom. You're free. Yeah, this is a free country. But like I said, if you're working every day because you have to or you're gonna die, that's not free. Like you should be
Right.
able to buy a house, own the property, and if you want to grow whatever you want to grow on your property and you want to store water on your property and you never want to work again, that you could do that. But if you did that today in America, they would come, they would remove you from your property and they would confiscate your property for not paying property taxes.
And there's cases of them doing that. There's cases of people that have, instead of having a yard or they want to have a garden,
Yeah.
grow food on their property, and you're not allowed to do that. You can't
Nope.
even collect rainwater. I mentioned that while we were waiting for you.
Yep.
I know people that illegally collect rainwater. It's illegal.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't that crazy?
crazy.
But
That fell
they
from the
give
sky.
Nestle the rights to millions and millions and millions of free gallons of water from Florida Springs every year. I mean,
And
like a
Nestle
crazy
make
amount of number,
tons of money.
tons of
And
money
water
on free
companies don't
water.
make water, they make plastic bottles. You know what I
Exactly,
mean?
exactly. And they're selling it, and they're
So,
selling it to us from what comes out of our land free. And it's
yeah.
man, like I said, for a
And they're
long time
trying
I've
to
always
own it
felt like it was
all.
that. Crazy,
So that's
crazy.
another reason why I'm saying, are we free? And that this would tie into the theory that like a billionaire shouldn't exist. That to hoard that much wealth is is like I often say it's like being a dragon in a Tolkien novel. When you have like a yacht that parks inside of your yacht, I'm talking about like Jeff Bezos money,
Yeah,
and you're not paying into society. He paid zero in taxes last year, and so did his company. And then he's not the only one. I'm just using him as an example. A lot of these super rich people, they don't pay into society, but they use it. His company, Amazon, they're using all the shipping methods, and they're using all they use the people, they use the education system to train their workers, all of this, but they don't pay in. But you pay in, I pay in.
yeah.
Why do we allow that? It's what
Because
I wonder all the time.
we've been mentally conditioned to not seek freedom, because not to feel like we're slaves. Because if you think back when they used to say, like, I don't know, remember who said it, but there was a saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." That was something that was bred into the people. That was something that people talked about: freedom, how precious freedom was, and how crooked the king was, and how all these tyrannical government forces used to do to the people. And that's why they left. That's why they left in the first place, to get away from that, to be an actual free country. And when he says free, that means free of taxes. And just basically free of everything. And they had that mindset that it was worth dying for, and it was bred into the kids from a young age that it was worth dying for. Like, freedom was worth dying for. And if you look back at, like, what was his name, Wallace? What did the King of England do to Wallace after they finally got a hold of him? They cut his body up into pieces and sent it all over the place, so that people would know that, look at that and say, that's what happens to you if you ever, fight or want to die for freedom. We'll cut you up in pieces and put you public display everywhere, across the country, for others
Yeah,
to see.
vulgar displays of power.
Yeah,
And
and
and it's
it's
that.
the same thing now. Same thing now.
I think some of it's a lot that actually, but then it's also, I think people give up their freedoms for convenience. Like they don't want to be bothered with making these decisions, so they just would rather let this politician or whoever they decide make those the big decisions for them, and then fall in line and just be a good worker.
Right.
They don't want the responsibility of taking ownership anymore. Like you were saying, back in the day, there was a different feeling about it, a different value of it, and more ownership of it. I think now people have gotten used to turning that over to the government to
Right.
provide for you instead of providing for yourself, or, being
Or
more
or
independent.
or even thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I heard
And
you say I heard you say something. I heard you say something today. You were talking about that people don't get an education; they get an indoctrination. And why do you think you walk away with a doctorate degree? Because you're officially sanctioned to indoctrinate other people now. You know, you can
yeah.
teach it. You can
No,
teach this indoctrinations. So we'll give you a doctorate degree as a verification of that. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
another great example of why I wouldn't really say that we're an oasis of freedom is the indoctrination system. And it's, we're at best, if you don't want to look at it as an indoctrination system, which is clearly what it is, they're only teaching our kids how to be good workers. They're not encouraging free thought. They don't encourage creativity. A lot of schools have their funding cut for things like band, or things they consider to be electives. We don't really push and encourage genius kids. And now we're trying to drug them all, got them all on ADHD medication. Every kid has ADHD.
Yep.
It's just, and you're right. The generations have changed and their values have changed. But I think it's a lot to do with society and like what I was saying, turning everything over for convenience, and we've gotten lazy. But the media still sells the American red, white, and blue value of freedom, and everybody buys it because that's what everybody wants to be on team number one, Everybody wants
Right.
to be the best. So I don't think they really fully believe it at their core because they got to know they're slaves to the dollar. At the
Gotta
end of the
know.
day, every one of us is.
You gotta know. If you
And
buy
you
a piece of
can't.
property and you still have to go to work to live on it after you've already paid for it, then my friend, you're not free. You're not free in any way,
Right.
shape, or form. And you know what was another funny thing about it was I do believe that income tax when it was first introduced was supposed to only be temporary. And
Really?
then and it's
Oh,
still
yeah, you're
here.
right. Actually, that's true.
Income tax was only supposed to be a temporary thing. I believe it was because of the war or the depression or the war because of the depression or something like that. I don't know the exact scenario, but it was only supposed to be a temporary thing. And here we are. This is why I don't trust the government. If you give them a little bit, give them just a little bit, you let them get their foot in the door and they're never going to leave. Not only are they going to, they're not never going to leave, but they're going to take a mile instead of an inch, and it's proven
That's
over
a
and
real
over
good
and over again,
example.
over and over and
That's an
over
excellent
again that,
example of that. I
so
had forgotten that, because you take it for granted because you're just so used to it. It's something that's always existed for me, but I forgot that it
yeah,
was supposed to be temporary.
when this country was founded, like taxation, they had a whole war to not pay taxes. Like people died to not pay taxes because they knew that taxes is slavery.
And
Taxes
now
is
we're being
slavery.
taxed without representation, which is what they went to war for.
It doesn't even matter about the representation. Taxation period is theft. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said before these superpowers that control the markets, they had the ability to manufacture the Great Depression. America was a thriving country before the Great Depression, and that whole thing was not it wasn't organic. It wasn't like the system was broken. It was a panic that was created and a rumor that was started by superpowers that made everybody want to take their money out of the banks and nobody could get loans and all this other kind of stuff. And
It was orchestrated. Yeah.
that's what created the Great Depression. And then they were like, okay, well, we need to do this or that. And, now we're paying income tax and it was only supposed to be temporary. And now it's, I don't know how many more years later and it's still here. We're still
Well, the
paying.
Federal Reserve is as federal as Federal Express, and they control inflation rates and what your money's worth and all of that.
Yeah. And, our money is printed by an outside organization that we pay people to print our money, and then we pay interest to them on the money that they print for us. So the money that we get printed for us is always coming with more interest. So we'll never get out of debt. And
Impossible to pay back.
the only place that I know of that doesn't have a bank that's not Rothschild owned or affiliated is Russia. And you can see who owns our country because every time you turn the TV on, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. It's these big banks that own our country. It's these big banks that own our media. It's these big banks that print our money. And these are nothing other than royal families from ancient lineage that have had money like the Queen of England. You know what I mean? Like the DuPonts,
That's
the
an excellent point.
Rothschilds.
And that would be the other reason why I don't believe that we're a freedom oasis. What I believe that we actually are is the military arm of the corporate elite that run this whole world, whatever you
100%.
want to call it.
100%.
The military arm of the people that own us, that own it all. That's what I think America is. And I think we're protected a lot from the bad things that are happening in the world due to all this greed. We don't really see how you amass this dragon like hoard of wealth, what you have to do, what the price that's paid, that's
Yeah.
paid all over the world. We're protected from a lot of that by living in America. We have it pretty good on a global scale,
We
you
have
know?
it about as good as an animal in a cage, you know. We're
Right.
protected and enslaved by the same token. You know, the same people or the same situation that protects us is the same situation that enslaves us, you know.
But
And there's
why
more the things that go ahead.
I was just going to say or try to ask why you think that most people would be angry to hear, if you said in a coffee shop and you just said America's not a free country, some of these old guys would want to get up and fight you.
Yeah.
But I think I've listed off a lot of reasons, and so have you, why we've had a lot of freedoms chipped away over time. But they don't
Yep.
acknowledge that.
No.
But
No.
isn't that how it happens? Like it slowly happens.
That's how they have to make it happen so that way you don't notice that it's happening, you know?
Right.
If you look around and if you look at our birth certificates, those are nothing more than banknotes. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah. We're
you're a
collateral.
yeah, you're collateral. You're stock. You know, you're stock. Your life is stock, and that's why they have
Hmm.
such a big problem with people refusing birth certificates in hospitals. They actually take children away from people who refuse that. I
I
don't
didn't
want a
know
birth
that.
certificate. I don't want a birth. You don't want to give your kid a birth certificate. Guess what? They'll take your child from you. You'll never see that child again. And it's happening,
I
and
didn't know
nobody's
that.
saying nothing because it's not being covered by mainstream media. But this is happening to us in America today. You know.
That's new information to me. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, seriously. And there's children are being taken because they don't want to vaccinate their children either. But the government takes their children away from them, saying that they're neglectful parents. You know.
Now, this is something that there's a lot of Amish communities around me. I don't know if you're familiar with the Amish, but
Yeah.
uh, I see them all the time, and I wonder sometimes, aren't they more free than I am?
100%. 100%.
Right?
100%. You know?
I mean, I wouldn't live that. I couldn't live that way. I couldn't give up technology and all of that. Although I've heard that on the sly, they do have engines and you know a lot of things we wouldn't think they'd have. But I don't know if that's true. But
Right.
I couldn't choose that life. But they are free.
Right.
That's more what freedom is. We're very restricted.
Yeah.
Like
They
go
wake up
ahead.
in the morning and go do what they want to do. Not, it's not the same as, how we are, I think
And
most
they're
of the
not taxed.
population, I think most of the population is living, basically paycheck to paycheck. I don't think
Well,
there's,
that's statistically true. We're all what $500 away from financial catastrophe, or two paychecks away. What do they
yeah,
say?
something like that.
But most Americans can't afford a $500 emergency. Is the stat?
Yeah.
Like if your car broke down, it would bust you financially.
Yeah.
I know that's true for me. I don't have a savings account.
Yep. And if you
Me
have
and
a
my
bunch,
wife live.
if you have a lot of kids, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and we do. Like between me and my wife, we have six of them. So
Wow.
and yeah, it's life is expensive. Everything's
Right.
expensive. And people, I don't want people to think that we're saying that you shouldn't work and you
Right.
shouldn't earn a living. That's not what we're saying. But this the tax system isn't fair, and there are a lot of people like Clinton was saying that feel that itself is theft. And there's even people have wanted me to cover it, so I haven't looked into it fully. But the 16th Amendment, isn't that the one? Or, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but there's an amendment in the Constitution that protects us from taxation. Something like that. In
Yeah.
some way, it's illegal. It's not legal to tax us, is what I'm told. If I would just look into it,
Right, but they find
that
little
it is
sneaky
literally theft.
loopholes and reasons and excuses to do it, you know?
Have you seen that stuff where they say that they actually can't make you pay taxes? Have you ever seen those people that say that?
Uh,
That
I
if you
have,
just
yeah.
decide to stop paying your taxes, you won't be in trouble. But how do you explain Willie Nelson? You know,
Yeah.
stuff that happened like that. They do though. Or Wesley Snipes went to prison for not paying taxes.
Mm, yeah.
Isn't that messed up? And it's where his accountant was robbing him. I think that's what it was with Willie.
But where does all this money from all the how many millions of people live in our country and are paying all this money, and then where is it all going? You know?
Well, I mean, it's they're wasting it. Since 9/11, the Pentagon has misplaced over $23 trillion. It was
Exactly.
2.1 trillion the day before 9/11, and it's
Yeah.
grown, nothing but grown.
Because
And that's just what you know about.
it's such a lucrative business that they can't figure out how to make it disappear. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're keeping basically keeping the boot on the neck of the American people, majority of the American people. You know, it's in my opinion, basically that's what's going on. You know, for the majority of the people, unless you're a doctor or you know you've done some kind of business venture that has caused you to be able to find financial freedom. But even in your financial freedom, it's not free. You're going to have to pay for that. You know, so
Unless
unless
you
of
get
course,
to a certain point, yeah,
yeah,
where you're a predator. That's what I feel like we should even call these people. Because I'm not talking about very many people. I often say you could fit them in this room.
yeah,
There's the ones that have the lease on us and that really own everything. That's why, all this nationalism. Doug Stanhope is a comic that I really like. Have you ever heard of Doug?
no, I haven't.
Look him up. I'll share you a link to this bit. But he has a bit on nationalism where he's like, you know, everybody gets so proud, like we whipped the French or whatever, or the French didn't do anything, and we defended them and their pussies. Like we did. Did you do it? We're taking pride in something we had nothing to do with, and something that doesn't believe what we're led to believe. History is written by the victors, and the
Yeah,
stories are told by the victors. So you're not even really told true history of America. You're proud of something that's not even the full picture.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's a little.
Just like we were talking about earlier today. If you look up the song "My Country 'Tis of Thee," and then you look at the song "God Save the Queen," it's the
Dude,
exact
it's
same melody
fascinating.
with different words. It's the exact same melody with different words, which to me is
Yep.
an exact representation of what we have going on in America, which is we're still paying taxes to the Queen. We're still under the guise of, the royal families or royal family. You know, we still pay $3 billion a year to Israel and the
More than
Jewish
that.
people.
Isn't it
The Jewish
11?
the Jewish people in America are some of the wealthiest people in America, yet America's paying Israel $3 billion a year instead of giving $3 billion a year to its own people. You know, it's for me it doesn't make any sense, and people are gonna can argue what they want, but like I said, the majority of all the most wealthiest properties in America are owned by Jewish people.
That's another interesting thing to get into as well is where all the power lies, where it truly lies, is in the money. And if you look at the influence that, like, say, Israel has over our country,
Yeah,
how do they have so much influence politically and financially and militarily? And the Catholic Church. I heard it said by I believe William Cooper wrote it in his book Behold a Pale Horse that Rome never fell; it just spread out around the world.
yeah,
The powerful elite have had it for hundreds of years. This power, and they just reimagined it and went underground and then came back out and spread their power. Their wealth is still concentrated in the same families, And like you were saying, the same people have owned everything for eons.
Yeah. And with the most recent thing that I've heard, but I haven't confirmed it, is that something that was key was the War of 1812. Um,
Yeah,
so,
that's interesting. And there was a treaty too that was also in 1753. Because I looked this up after we talked today. I went and did a little research, and the establishment version, there's always two sides. You know what I'm saying? When you look at anything, you look into any conspiracy, there's two sides. The establishment version is yes, these things happened. This treaty happened, and this other thing that Clinton was mentioning happened, but it doesn't mean what you're interpreting it to mean. Like the treaty doesn't mean what you're interpreting it.
it, do-
You're being too literal.
it doesn't mean what the words say, basically.
Right, exactly. So the conspiracy theorists, the crazy people, they're taking this document at what it says and going, well, if you interpret this as basically we're still a British colony. And the historians are saying, no, you're being too literal and it's more figurative and it was more of just
Or
a
figure,
treaty.
figurative law, figurative legal document.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's interesting. And so there's something there, and I want to look deeper into it. I didn't get to do a whole lot of digging, but I wanted to look at both. And I thought the establishment view was the funniest because they're like, yeah, it's there, but you're misinterpreting it. But I thought that was funny. But
it,
he's right about that song. Look up that
it's like the
song. They are the
exact
same
same
song.
melody. We are singing
It's the
God,
exact
but
same song.
we're singing God Save the Queen every time we sing that Our Country 'Tis of
Yep.
Thee. Same
Either
thing.
that or somebody owes somebody some money.
Yeah, copyright. But you know what's
Yep.
weird is it says Our Country 'Tis of Thee. Like who are we? Is it 'Tis of the Queen? It's the Queen's country. Is that like it? You try to maybe connect the dots, like 'Tis of Thee. Tis of who? Who? And it's under the
Yeah.
Queen song,
Yeah.
God Save the Queen song, and it's Tis of Thee. And I don't know. For me, it's almost
And I
like
gotta
paying homage
know,
to the Queen.
I gotta think that the Queen's song is older.
Oh,
So it
definitely.
definitely existed before Our Country 'Tis of Thee. So that's it's at least as bad as them stealing Stairway to Heaven. And Led Zeppelin stealing Stairway to Heaven from that little band they stole it from.
Yeah. Well, for me, if I start to think about, okay, so our country was founded on the lives of people who sacrificed themselves to get away from the Queen of England. Why would anybody write a song that even remotely resembled God Save the Queen after so many people have lost their lives trying to get free of the Queen in England? Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's a slap in the face of all the American people. You know what I mean? It's a real slap in the face because when you think about it, we our ancestors that came here fought for freedom from England, and now we're all basically back underneath the guise of hierarchy where we're paying our taxes just like everybody used to before America was founded.
You're getting ready to be back in the exact same boat. We're painting ourselves in a corner. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I think that during the course of this conversation, I may have convinced myself we're even less free than I thought I was when we started. Because I wasn't thinking about certain things. Like you don't put it in the big picture all the time because you don't
Yeah.
line it all up. You don't
You
think,
don't
hey, I
own
can't grow
nothing.
food in my yard.
You don't own nothing. You don't own the property you bought. You don't own the water that you drink. You don't own the food that you eat. And pretty soon you're not even going to own your kids or your choice to medical freedom and or religious freedom if people don't stand up and say, "Hey, we're not going to stand for this." There's
We're
there's
heading in a
even
scary
there's even
direction.
there's even rumors of mandatory adult vaccinations for the flu. I haven't had the flu in years. Years. I
I
don't take
wouldn't do that. You
I
can't
don't
make
take a
me do
flu I
that.
don't take a flu vaccine, and I haven't had the flu. I can't even remember last time I had a flu. That's
No,
how long it's been.
yeah, I don't get sick very much either. And there's no way I'm taking the flu vaccine. And I'm not even talking about because the things that are in it. That's enough. But that's not what I'm just not doing it. You're definitely not going to make me do it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
But here they go is how they're going to try to force feed it to you is public safety, just like national security, public safety. You have to think about the other people. You have to stick
But if
yourself within
vaccines
the
work, right? If vaccines work and you go to Walgreens, you get your flu shot, aren't you safe
yeah.
from me?
I don't know, but they say that people with immunodeficiencies or diseases that healthy people need to get the flu shot so they don't spread the flu to people with compromised immune systems, and that's how they're starting to try to push it.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
We can't stand for stuff like that. And then, I had an interview when I did with Ali French about mandatory vaccinations, and a lot of her stats really blew me away. And I already knew that we had, mandatory vaccinations. I knew that was I had children, so I experienced it in my own life. And my kids, like, Robert Kennedy Jr. talks about a lot, have like 10 times the amount of vaccinations that I had when I was a kid or my parents had when they were kids. It's gone up dramatically over the years. And a lot of them are mandatory. You can't even go to school or enroll your kids in school without them.
yeah, it's getting ridiculous. I think California
And I'm
is
not saying they're
California and New York already have them in place. Texas, Florida, and a few other states have them on the floor of the Senate right now. I spoke to people in Canada, and the people in Canada are saying the same things going on in Canada, where they're trying to force the mandatory vaccinations on children. And it's just basically what we're all coming down to is we're all just a bunch of livestock, and we're feeding the machine. We're
See, the thing I wonder
the
about
machine
that,
is feeding on our energy.
you're describing it pretty well, actually. That's a good analogy for it, for sure. And it's maybe even a literal translation of what's happening. But I forgot what I was going to say now because your point was so good. What
But
was I going to say? We were talking about something important. I had a point. That I
oh,
hate when that
sorry, man, I
happens.
shouldn't have cut you off. I
No,
apologize.
no, you're good. You're good. That's the fun of live. But what we were basically doing is trying to put a bow on this. I don't really know where to stop on it. But
You
oh,
can't.
I remember what I was about to say. I got it now. I'm proud of me. So the vaccinations, I don't understand. My view on that is if the product is really good, wouldn't it sell itself? Like I don't understand the mandatory part. But I'm no scientist. Don't send me hate mail about vaccinations. I land where Robert Kennedy Jr. lands. That we need regulations and that's been unregulated since the 80s. Not that we want to turn this into a vaccination talk. It was an example of freedoms.
Freedom, medical freedom,
Yeah,
basically, religious and
yeah,
medical freedom. That's
religious and
not if
medical.
vaccinations are good or not, not if you
Right.
agree with them or not, but are you free not to stick your son or daughter with a needle full of stuff you don't know? You didn't put that thing together. You don't know where it's from. You don't know the people that put it together. You don't know their motives.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not.
not your
I'm not.
choice.
That's like you're getting drug. For me, I just don't. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to. I don't want to have to be forced
I
to
don't, yeah, I
do
wouldn't get
things.
the flu shot. I have a nurse friend that always tries to get me to get it, and I just never wanted it. It's like, because she even told me it can make you sick. Well, I don't get sick. Why do I want to take a shot and pay you to shoot me with that needle and maybe get sick? I'll
Yeah,
take my chance.
crazy.
And if I get the flu, I'll get me some Theraflu and I'll sweat it out. You know what I mean?
The
I'll
best
deal with
part
it.
is when people get the flu shot and then they get the flu and they say, "Oh, I don't. I just have all the symptoms of the flu. I have a fever. I have body aches. I have the runny and stuffy nose, but I don't actually have the flu. I just have the symptoms because I put the virus in my body and my body's building antibodies, and that's a direct effect,
Right.
a result of that." And I'm like,
The
you just told me you got
rationalizing.
the flu. You got a temperature.
Right.
You got sniffles. You got body aches. you feel like crap, you got the flu. You got the flu from the flu shot. And yes, now you have antibodies in your system because of it. But you got the flu.
Right.
That's why you got the antibodies, because your body had to build a resistance against it. But anyway, we're falling off topic. That's not important. But
But
yeah, like it's a lot of in it. What I was gonna say a second ago is let's take, for example, what's going on in our country. You think that our country is free? So tell me, how come senators, uh, you know, judges to a certain level, people who fill those seats, Congress, how come after they get done working, they receive the same amount of money every year as they did when they were actually doing a job for the American people, all the way up until the day they die. Meanwhile, Social Security for the majority of us is getting smaller and smaller and more impossible to survive on. Meanwhile, these people are making six figures a year for life, for life. While you're and my grandma got to choose between paying this or paying for their medicine. How is that
yep.
freedom? That's crazy. That's crazy. The people right there, they're writing their own checks in Washington D.C. They're writing their own checks with our money.
And filling their pockets with lobbyist money
Yes, yep,
to vote against you, to vote against your best interest and to bury you deeper.
yep.
They're enriching themselves. Like Nancy Pelosi is worth like what, $60 million? What's her
Yeah,
salary? 300,000.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That's a
Paul
lot of.
Ryan.
How does that
Yeah,
happen? You know, how does
right.
that happen? She must be a major investor or something.
And then when they stop, when if they ever do, like she'll die in office, it seems like. But if they ever stop being a politician, then they become a lobbyist,
Yeah,
and they just go do that and make a career out of that.
and still
They've all
get paid full benefits that they did when they were actually working as a politician or as a senator or whatever. They're still
so
making the same money till the day they
when your
die.
whole government's controlled and bought and paid for, are you free?
You're not. You're
You
not.
know,
None of us are. None of us are.
but it's an illusion. Like that's why we agreed on the title. We played back and forth with titles, and this was the best one, the illusion of freedom, because it is an illusion. When you really break it down, you find all kinds of flaws and all kinds of reasons how and ways that we're not really free, and it doesn't stand up. But the picture that's painted for you ever since you're little is that we are so free. We have these unlimited freedoms. You can say whatever you want. Well, you can say whatever you want, but we get to pick and choose who hears it.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
they got ways of breaking it down, and they've chipped away at it to where, oh, you can do that. Well, but you can't do that in this state, or that's not allowed in this county. It's just all been chipped away in little ways, and then in big ways too. Like the Patriot Act was a big way they really came after a lot of freedoms. They used 9/11 to scare people to death and get them to give up their freedoms
For what? National security.
to feel protected, to feel
National
safe.
security. National security. National security is basically a golden ticket for the government to do whatever they want to do, uh, criminal or non-criminal, and not have to ever face any repercussions, or even have to find out that nobody even finds out that it happened. You know.
No, and they can keep redacting it even when you file freedom of information requests. They can just redact half the information or more than that
Yeah.
and never tell you anything ever, even after they've released it. Half the page is blacked out. But let me see, is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't cover
No, that
about
was pretty much it
the
all right
loss
there.
of our freedoms?
That was pretty
We,
much
yeah,
all of it right there.
what we were setting out to do is basically explain that freedom, as we're sold it, is not true. It's an illusion.
It's definitely it's not freedom. It's
And
not
it
fair.
wasn't meant to be like a constitutional class. Like Adam was here and he shared some really good stuff from the Constitution. And if I felt like that document was protecting us at this point, maybe I would have focused more on that or spent more time on that and the actual laws. But money controls everything now.
Yes.
And I think that we all have common enemies, no matter where you land politically, because a lot of the politics has been bought off. So we're all fighting the same enemy, and it's the almighty dollar,
Yeah. And
in my
so
mind.
even if you look at if Bernie Sanders were to be elected, I mean if they were able to stop Donald Trump's agenda, and they did a pretty good job of blocking a lot of the stuff that he wanted to do. I mean, if it doesn't benefit them, they can do the same thing to Bernie Sanders. You know, it's
Well, they could, but like even if it was Trump, like if as long as the people got behind, let's say they got behind Donald Trump. So if all the people got behind Donald Trump could do literally anything he wanted to do if the people stayed behind him. But if they didn't, he couldn't do anything more than what any other president can do, which isn't really that much because I don't think we've had a real president since Kennedy. And Donald Trump would be the closest thing to a real president because he didn't get elected by the powers that be. I think he got elected because everything got out of hand. They rigged an election, they rigged the primary, and then they tried to lie about it in the media. They lost all credibility, they alienated half their base, and then Donald had more support than they acknowledged. He wins against their best interest. They pushed Russiagate for 2 years to try to explain it, which never had any basis in reality. But if the people were to get behind him, he could do things. The only thing that like I like about Bernie is that he is empowering the people, talking to the people, telling them, you got to do this. Like I got a lot of nice ideas that you might like, but if you don't do the work, then it don't get done. So if all the American people did was elect Bernie and then go back to sleep and stop working, stop being active, he wouldn't be able to do anything either. You're absolutely right. Because nobody could. And if I do believe in that, but if it was to fail, I would probably lose faith in politics altogether. I only have faith in the movement, really,
yeah,
the people, because the people have to do it. I don't really have a hero complex for Bernie or anything like that. I
yeah,
just like what he's put together.
yeah.
He's just another man.
I flirted with the idea of voting for Bernie Sanders actually, but he never
Oh, I'll
made it out.
convert you
He
still.
never made it out of the primary. So and
I'll still convert you. I'll still convert you. We got time. We got time.
but really, I'm kind of getting to the point of like really, I mean, I'm not as enthusiastic about voting as I used to be at one time because I just don't feel like any side is not owned by the buck. Every side is already paid for. So if both sides are serving the dollar, doesn't matter who wins. I mean, it's going to change the little things, but here and there, it could benefit the people more, could discourage the people more, or hurt the people more. But
There's a famous quote that I
basically at the end of the day, they're still working for the same families that own the same banks that print the same money that we're still paying the same interest, and it's still creating just this perpetual debt system. And
That's what I
there's
was
no
going to say.
difference.
Basically, there's a Rothschild quote where I care not who makes the laws as long as I control the money or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know exactly how it goes, but it doesn't matter who's making the laws if I control the money and I control their economic system. I can control everything.
and that's kind of where I'm at politically today. Like I was real gung ho about voting back in 2016 because I felt like I was voting against the establishment when I voted for Donald Trump. And
I did that when I voted against George W. Bush because I was mad about 9/11.
so, but now that
The
I've
same
seen like
thing.
the Epstein thing, really kind of, uh, I lost a lot of hope in any real change once I seen that was allowed to happen. I don't see anything really changing as far as like, drain the swamp. I don't see a lot of people getting drained out of the swamp. I still see the same swamp monsters in Washington D.C. on Capitol Hill. I still see the same bullcrap going on in California, New York. The rich are still getting rich, and the rich are still living above the law that they write for us. They're all a bunch of, uh, you know, one hand washes the other kind of people. And that's all that's going on. That's all that's going on.
And I don't understand. And what drives me crazy that it's allowed. And I think the thing is that most people don't take responsibility and ownership that we are allowing it and that we are the only thing that could ever stop it. And
Yeah,
that's what politics does is it divides us up in little groups, makes us easy to control. If we ever came together, we would be unstoppable.
we should organize a Washington D.C. march for freedom.
I like that. It's a good idea.
Should
We'll
start
talk
trying to
about
push it.
that.
We should push it and see if we can get enough people to actually make it happen.
Yeah, like the Area 51 thing. See if we can get excitement behind it, make it
Yeah,
happen.
except we're just having a march in Washington D.C.
Right.
Yeah.
No aliens, nothing like that. But see if we can get
No,
people excited and actually marching for our freedom, because that's what
for
we're going to have to
freedom.
do is stuff like that.
Yeah. If you can if you can have enough people to, actually get the government's attention to all stand up at once, that's what's going to make the difference. It doesn't matter, who in my opinion, I'll say that, Bernie's a good guy and that maybe he has good intentions, but if people, like you said, if people aren't standing up and saying, "Hey, we're together," and the government works for the people, and people don't work for the government, we're still going to get the same result, you know,
I
because
agree, though. I totally
right,
agree.
right now, we work for the government instead of the government working for us, you know.
Yeah, yeah. They don't consider themselves to be public servants. They consider themselves to be our masters, and that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Have you ever
They
watched
need a rude
C-SPAN and watch?
awakening.
You ever watch C-SPAN and see how many are sleeping during on the job sleeping like this?
Oh
Man,
yeah,
it's a joke.
they don't take their job
It's a joke.
seriously. They pay up for work. It is. It you know they don't deserve the salary that they're paid. They're overpaid to begin with, and then they fill in their pockets and making enriching themselves in other ways. It's all corrupt, and the only thing that's going to change it, like you said, is us doing what we need to do that. And I'm behind any leader that I think can inspire people to do that because that's what we need to do. So I'm
Yeah,
on the path I'm on,
the
and if it
last
don't
the
work,
last couple leaders that could have done that ended up dead.
well, yeah, every one
Martin
of them
Martin Luther
actually,
King, Malcolm X, JFK, Gaddafi.
yeah,
I mean, who
every one of them.
anybody who threatens the system is automatically deleted. You
That's
know.
one of the reasons why um, we won't get into this now, but I'm having a QAnon person on Wednesday on conspiracy theories and chill. But it's one of the reasons why I've never went into that rabbit hole very deep because it's hard for me to believe Donald Trump's fighting against the establishment because he has the same amount of holes he had in his head when he took office. I've seen what they do to people that fight against the establishment, and I think the only reason why someone like Bernie wouldn't be in danger is because Bernie is not saying I can do it. JFK made the mistake of saying I can smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces. I can disband the Federal Reserve System. I can do that stuff. He can't do it, but we can. So I feel like that someone pushing that, like Martin Luther King was pushing that. He was actually going in that direction. He was pushing for more than civil rights. He was also pushing for human rights and societal rights.
Yeah.
And he would have went more in that direction had he been allowed to live. And a lot of these people you named off that were cut down were trying to move us in that direction. And then the powers that be do all they can to keep us going in the other direction and to keep us divided and weak. And that's how we lost our freedoms, how we found ourselves in this situation. But I wanted to thank you though for coming on
Hey, my pleasure,
and
man.
talking about. Yeah, this has been awesome. So letting me play with my little toy. This is cool being able to interview people, being able to have people like you on and talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, definitely sweet, man. I'm glad you got the app. So I look forward to watching more of these shows and seeing more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of interviews coming up. Like I said, we're going to have Nick on Wednesday to talk about QAnon, which I'm
Nice.
very interested in, by the way.
Yeah,
I
because I'd
like
like to
that.
know. I'd like to know what's going on with QAnon now too, because I know that 8chan has been dismantled, and there.
Has it
So
really?
basically, the platform that Q was posting on for the last 3 or 4 years is no more. So now who's to say what the who and what is the real QAnon now? Where is it coming from?
Wow.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't know that.
you
So
know
I'm going
what's
to have to
funny?
get
Let
into
me
that
tell you
with
something
Nick.
else. What's really funny about that 8chan is that the you remember the New Zealand shooter with the manifesto that he
Mm-hmm.
wrote and the
Yeah.
and the li- and the live feed. Guess where
Yeah.
that was posted to? 8chan.
H. Yeah.
So it was just funny to me how a platform that's doing the most damage, in some people's opinion, to the establishment and exposing what's going on behind the scenes. Now somehow it gets tied to terrorist people, or the New Zealand shooter. And there was
Is
another
that how
shooter.
they were able to disband it? By
I
tying it to that
that
shooting?
I think that was the beginning of the end of it. I don't know, but I know that when I was watching that and I seen that it was posted on 8chan, I said, "Oh, it all made perfect sense." And not too much longer after that, New Zealand 8chan was done. It could have been
Yeah.
months, but it wasn't very long after that. To my knowledge, I could be wrong though. But
Well, I'm definitely going to, I wrote that down because I want to get into that with Nick because he's going to take me on a tour, of the QAnon phenomenon and everything that I need to know. And he's going to explain it to me and break it all down. So that's going to be cool. Tune in for that on Wednesday.
I'll be there,
And
man.
right on. Well, thanks again for coming on and doing this. And we'll talk again some other time if you'd like. If you'd ever come back on, we'll have you on for some other reason.
All right, cool, man. Everybody, peace, love.
All right. Have a good one, man. Thanks for doing the show tonight, Clinton.
No problem. Later, brother.
Later. All right, so that was Clinton Gordon, and he came on to talk to us about whether or not we're free in this country. And there has not been a comment for a long time, ever since Adam said, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, Declaration of Independence. That was the last comment. I find that fascinating because we had upwards of 30 people here and nobody talking. That happened the other night too, and I'm curious to see when I wrap up whether or not this feed has 0 views too, because the feed from the other night still has 0 views on Facebook and like 1,700 interactions. So it's fascinating to me, and I'm fascinated to see if that's what happens with this one. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you dug it. I hope you got some entertainment value out of it, and let me know what you think. Is America a free country, or is it the illusion of freedom? Do we really have freedom? Are we really as free as we're led to believe we are? Let me know what you think. And tune in Wednesday night for the interview with Nick Reeder about QAnon. That's going to be really fascinating. I'm looking forward to it. And we always try to get real into the conspiracies on conspiracy theories and shows. So it should be fun. Thanks for watching and thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed the discussion, and we'll see you next time.